For the first time since 2018, Pacific Rim is finally getting a proper sequel. The original movie was a surprise hit back in 2013, pulling in strong numbers at the box office and building a passionate cult following. 5 years later, we got Pacific Rim Uprising, but let's be honest, that one didn't quite live up to the hype. Now the franchise is getting a real second chance. Legendary Comics has officially announced Pacific Rim Final Breach, a brand new 3-volume graphic novel series written by Joshua Fialkov with artwork by E.J. Su. The first volume is currently available for support on Kickstarter, and fans can already check out Su's cover art. The story raises the stakes higher than ever. Humanity faces its deadliest threat as the precursors unleash a brutal new wave of kaiju attacks. After years of failed attempts to enter the Antiverse, the dimension where kaiju originate, Jake Pentecost and Herman Gottlieb come up with one last desperate plan. Their only hope depends on finding Raleigh Beckett, the legendary Jaeger pilot who remains the only human to survive behind enemy lines. But Raleigh has been living in exile, completely off the grid. Now he has to make the ultimate choice: face certain annihilation or confront his past and fight once more. This time, he'll be joining a new generation of pilots to command the Gypsy Destroyer, humanity's final Jaeger. As tensions rise and old scars resurface, the PPDC prepares to cross the breach itself to finally meet the true enemy on the other side. It's humanity's last shot to cancel the apocalypse once and for all. The first volume of Final Breach is expected to drop in October, with Volume 2 scheduled for fall 2026 and the conclusion in 2027. And this isn't the first time Pacific Rim has expanded in graphic novel form. Back in 2013, Legendary released Tales from Year Zero, a prequel developed with Guillermo del Toro that explored the early days of the Kaiju War. Then came Tales from the Drift in 2015, set during the events of the first movie, and Aftermath, which bridged the gap between both films. Final Breach will officially continue the story of both movies, though it's still unclear whether it will connect with the live-action series currently in development at Amazon Prime. Either way, the comics are sticking to movie canon. One of the biggest disappointments in Uprising was the absence of Raleigh Beckett. Scheduling conflicts with Charlie Hunnam's other movie, Papillon, meant he couldn't return, but comics don't have to deal with schedules or budget restrictions, which is why fans can finally look forward to Raleigh's long-awaited comeback in this new trilogy. And while this graphic novel series is moving the story forward, Pacific Rim is also expanding on the small screen. Deadline reports that Amazon Prime Video is developing a prequel series with MGM Studios and Legendary producing, while Eric Heiserer is on board as writer and executive producer through his Chronology banner. This won't just be another spin-off, but a full-blown prequel diving into the earliest days of humanity's war with the kaiju. We're talking about the exact moment the world discovered something massive tearing its way through an interdimensional rift in the Pacific. And for fans, that means we'll finally see how the Jaeger program really began. With the prequel series taking place years before the first movie, Charlie Hunnam's return seems like a long shot, but it's not completely impossible. Fans still remember him as one of the original Jaeger pilots in the Pan-Pacific Defense Corps, drifting with co-pilots to sync their minds and operate those towering machines. In recent interviews, Hunnam admitted he'd only come back if Guillermo del Toro personally asked him, which adds even more weight to his potential return. After Uprising got a mixed reception, the franchise went pretty quiet for a while, but now Legendary is ready to fire it back up, putting their trust in Eric Heiserer, who already has a first-look deal with the studio for new projects. The Pacific Rim prequel is one of the first to roll out under that partnership, and if it takes off, it could easily open the door to an expanded shared universe, similar to how Legendary built up the Monsterverse. It's still early, but according to Variety, the series is officially moving forward, with Heiserer and his Chronology team already shaping the story. This could be the moment Pacific Rim gets the fresh start fans have been waiting for. So what's this prequel actually about? Official details are still under wraps, but we do know it's set before the first movie. And interestingly, it's not the first time Pacific Rim has explored those early years. We got Tales from Year Zero, a tie-in comic written by Travis Beacham and overseen by Del Toro himself. That story gave fans a gritty, behind-the-scenes look at what happened right after the very first kaiju made landfall. The comic followed multiple perspectives from the early days of the war, showing how humanity's first response was a complete disaster. Conventional military weapons couldn't scratch the kaiju, leading to a full-blown global crisis. Governments around the world had no choice but to scramble and build the Jaeger program. The comic also introduced us to a younger Stacker Pentecost, showing him right there on the front lines when the kaiju threat began. There's a strong chance the new series might pull from Tales from Year Zero. An anthology-style format would make a lot of sense. Each episode could spotlight different characters and pivotal moments from those chaotic early years of the war. That would allow the show to capture the full scale of the crisis while also digging into the personal stories of the people who shaped humanity's response. Now, if there's one thing fans are hoping for, it's that this prequel brings back the grounded, desperate tone that made the first film so memorable. One of the biggest criticisms of Uprising was that it lost all of that. Instead of gritty world building and high-stakes drama, Uprising leaned heavily into over-the-top visuals, cartoonish humor, and generic action beats. The kaiju didn't feel terrifying anymore. They were treated more like big punching bags for the Jaegers. Even the characters came across as flat or forgettable, and for a lot of fans, the emotional weight of the original was completely gone. If Legendary wants this series to succeed, it needs to fix those mistakes. The show has to lean into what made the first film so powerful. The sense that every kaiju battle was a do-or-die situation for humanity, that the Jaeger pilots were carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders, and that the stakes couldn't be higher. If they nail that balance, mixing huge kaiju action with human drama, and that gritty sense of survival, this prequel could not only redeem the franchise after Uprising, but also carve out its own place among the biggest franchises today. When Del Toro first launched Pacific Rim, he had a huge trilogy mapped out. His plan was bold: reveal the true origin of the kaiju invasion in the second movie, and then wrap it all up with a third film set almost entirely in the Antiverse, the alien dimension where the monsters came from. He and screenwriter Zach Penn actually had a very different, much more complex script for a second movie. The big twist was that the precursors weren't some alien invaders at all. They were us, humans from a distant future, trying to terraform Earth back into something livable. It created this wild paradox, where humanity was fighting against itself in these exo-bio suits, and the whole story shifted into a more philosophical territory. But in a move that still frustrates fans, Warner Brothers sidelined Del Toro's vision and instead handed the sequel to Steven DeKnight. His version took the franchise in a completely different direction, abandoning much of the careful groundwork Del Toro had laid. It's very possible some of Del Toro's early drafts and concepts could end up resurfacing in Final Breach, the new comic trilogy. Who knows, maybe we'll finally get a taste of what his Pacific Rim 3 would have looked like. After all, Uprising ended on a massive cliffhanger, practically begging for a third movie. A full-on theatrical threequel would almost certainly focus on humanity's ultimate battle with the kaiju inside the Antiverse. DeKnight himself has admitted that during production, he and his team were already tossing around ideas for that third film. Several draft scripts were written, teasing a much bigger, more expansive storyline. But those drafts never went anywhere, and now they're just gathering dust on a shelf. With the studio's attention firmly shifted to the upcoming prequel series, the odds of those plans ever getting revived are slim. And honestly, focusing on the prequel might be the smarter call. With Eric Heisserer at the helm, the project is in capable hands. His track record proves he knows how to balance character-driven storytelling with high-concept sci-fi, which is exactly what Pacific Rim needs. If the franchise wants to truly recapture its magic, it has to return to that gritty, immersive style Guillermo del Toro perfected in the first movie. As for Del Toro himself, his involvement hasn't been confirmed, but it's hard to imagine him staying completely detached from a universe he built from the ground up. Even if he's not directing, a producer credit or some advisory role feels almost inevitable. His fingerprints on the project could absolutely elevate it, but at the same time, too much involvement could create friction with the new creative team. Whether that ends up being a blessing or a misstep will depend entirely on how the show finds its footing. At the end of the day, this world exists because of Del Toro's imagination. If the prequel series really wants to win back the fans, leaning into his vision and style is the safest bet. Even if he's only quietly guiding things from behind the scenes, his influence could be exactly what makes this new chapter in the Pacific Rim saga work.